Ethno-nationalist walked into a mosque in New Zealand and killed 50-odd innocent people simply because he believed that he needed to save the white race. And these people sometimes try to dress themselves up as Christians, try to use the language of Christians to justify their political narrative. And what I want to talk about today is why, as Christians, we must oppose ethno-nationalism. Why, as Christians, we should oppose this repugnant, backward, inbred, unthinking, irrational ideology, narrative. And our principal reason for objecting to that ethno-nationalism is because our brothers and sisters who are not white will be amongst their first victims and have already been so. Let me give you an example. Dylan Ruth was found guilty for the Charleston church shooting. He targeted a black church because it was black. Let me read some of what the newspapers reported. A South Carolina jury has found Dylan Ruth, the self-avowed white supremacist who killed 9 black parishioners in a Charleston church in June 2015, guilty of all 33 federal charges he faced, including hate crimes, murder, attempted murder, and obstruction of religion. Barring appeal, the conviction means that Ruth, 22, could either spend the rest of his life in prison or be subject to the death penalty. Sentencing has been scheduled for January, and Ruth has been cleared by Judge Richard Gergel to represent himself in those proceedings. The experts have suggested this leaves Ruth, a high school dropout with no legal training, much more likely to be sentenced to death. 9 white jurors and 3 black jurors took less than 3 hours to come to a unanimous decision on the charges. In addition to these federal convictions, Ruth will also face a trial on state charges scheduled for January. Ruth could be sentenced to death in that trial too. In a statement, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley said, "It is my hope that the survivors, the families, and the people of South Carolina can find some peace in the fact that justice has been served." And so it has. Christians must not climb into bed with any form of ethno-nationalism, any kind of white supremacism, any kind of narrative that seeks to separate man according to the colour of his skin, as opposed to that more noble, more honourable narrative given by a doctor in the faith, Martin Luther King, who said you should judge a man by the content of his character, not by the colour of his skin.
Content over everything.
There are many Christians who have found themselves in bed with nationalist forms of ideology because they think that to defend Europe is to defend something Christian. However, to defend the church is to defend something that is supra-national, supra-ethnic. It sits above national identities. It sits above racial identities. And as Christians, we must oppose any ideology that would denigrate our brothers and sisters in Christ simply because they are not white. There is nothing special about being white. It is an accident of your birth. Like being black is an accident of your birth. Like being Arab is an accident of your birth. There is nothing innately superior about the colour of your skin. And those of you who judge a man purely because of the colour of their skin demonstrate how unthinking, how backward, how uneducated, how uncultivated, how savage, how degenerate you truly are. When a man thinks that he is justified in taking life just because of colour, they have demonstrated themselves to be the worst kind of human being there is. They're right up there with abortionists. They're right up there with those who slaughter Christians purely because of their religion. But please note, ladies and gentlemen, that when these black Christians were murdered by these ethno-nationalists, we Christians did not try to hijack the tragedy and call it something that it was not. We didn't say that it was Christophobia. We didn't try to play the victim card and say that we Christians were being targeted for our faith. Why? Because we were not. They were targeted because of the colour of their skin. My brothers and sisters murdered purely because they were black. And if that makes me a race traitor, then I'm proud to be one. By contrast, in New Zealand, an ethno-nationalist equally abhorrently, criminally, backwardly and degenerately murdered Muslims purely because of the colour of their skin. But what happened in the media? They mislabelled this crime as Islamophobia. They mislabelled it as a targeted crime against Muslims. Why? Was it because they were telling a truthful narrative of events? No. Anyone who read the manifesto of this backward savage would know that he was motivated by a racial ideology, not by a hatred of religion. There are Christian Arabs. There are Christian Turks. There are Christian Malaysians. There are Christian Indonesians. And he didn't want any of them in the white world. So why then did the media lie to you? Why then did the media portray this heinous crime as something else other than what it was? It is because the media have decided that any opposition to Sharia law or to Islamist supremacism or to Islam as a system of beliefs or values is guilty of a thought crime. And so that is why they mislabeled those events. That is why they lied to you. Because the liberal left are afraid. They are afraid that people have seen Islamist supremacism for what it is and that they wish to oppose it. Well,